Welcome back to Alabama Gristmill. This week we've got a good story on one of the most historic towns in the state of Alabama and a pilgrimage they have coming up. But first, I want to welcome my co-host, Donna Causey.
Hello. I'm glad to be here.
You enjoying the spring weather?
Oh, yeah. That's my favorite time of year. I love getting out in the spring. And what's a lot fun, too, is you get to tour a lot of old houses sometimes in the spring, too.
Yeah. Well, there's all these pilgrimages, and that's kind of what we wanted to talk about as well with this the historic town. The pilgrimage coming up is the Eufala Pilgrimage. That'll be coming up on April 6th through 8th, right after Easter.
Yeah.
And it's the oldest tour of homes in Alabama.
Yeah.
And down in Eufala.
It was started back in 1965 when the Shorter Mansion was on the auction block, and the people of the town didn't want it to be torn down. And they bought it and turned it. They didn't want it turned into an apartment complex is what it was looking like it was going to do. So they bought it and they started the Eufala Heritage Association.
I'm glad they did because there's some beautiful houses down there.
Oh, it is. When you go down to Florida, a lot of people and Gulf Shores and all in that area, you know, a lot of times people like to take a side trip through Eufala because there's so many beautiful mansions and homes and that are so historic and beautiful. Yeah. Just it's nice to just watch, and they're so well taken care of. Can you believe after 1965, here they just bought the mansion and they had the first pilgrimage in 1966. They really had to work hard to do that.
For those who haven't been to a pilgrimage, what are they going to be doing down there with a pilgrimage, or what is it?
A tour of the homes, a big tour of the homes, and they have each story in itself has a story. I mean, each home has a story. Not each story has a story. Each home has a story. Local volunteers will guide you through the different homes, and that's what's nice about it is they're local, so they can tell you a lot of different interesting things that you wouldn't gain anywhere else. The big candlelight tours and open air exhibit and gardens and afternoon teas and musical entertainment. They've been doing this since 1966, so they really do a good job.
It's kind of like a good, true Southern experience, I would say.
It is. I think it is. You know, the people are going to be. They'll have people dressed up in costumes and all. So you go back in time, seeing what life was like during Eufala. In those days.
So tell me a little bit more about Eufala and the notable historical things about it. Why is it one of the most historic towns in Alabama?
Well, one reason is it has 6 official governors and 2 interim governors who resided in Barber County, anyway, right around close to Eufala. That is unique in itself to have that many. It was so interesting that they made a governor's trail in Barber County that was designated by the legislature in the year 2000 to recognize all those governors. If you go down, the governor's trail begins in Clio, where George Wallace, of course, everybody knows Governor George Wallace. The name is very familiar. That's where he was born. And he starts there at the intersection of SR 10 and SR 51 and continues northeast through Louisville to downtown Clayton. And then it goes on to Highway 30 and then extends into Eufala, where it turns into 431 and the Shorter Mansion. So you get a nice little trail and take the tour of where all these 8 governors resided at one time or another. There's Lake Eufala. If you don't like always looking at houses, you can go out and do some bass fishing out there. It's a lot of fun too. So Eufala's got a lot of.
That's a very popular bass fishing place. I do know that.
It is. It's a mecca for those who like to do bass fishing. Do you know who the governors were who were born?
No.
Who resided there? You know their names?
That would be no.
You don't know that.
George Wallace.
Well, I gave one of them away. And then there was George Corley Wallace was born in Clio in Barber County. And then the first one, though, was John Gill Shorter, governor, who was the governor in 1861 to 1863, just as the Civil War broke out. So he served during the Civil War period. And then William Dorsey Jelks was from 1900 to 1907. And he...
Now, was his name John Governor?
John Gill Shorter Governor. It was the Shorter... John Gill Shorter. It was the Shorter Mansion that got a lot of the started. That was... The Shorter Mansion is actually Eli Sims Shorter Mansion. Eli was the nephew of Governor John Gill Shorter.
Okay.
His home is now a museum that honors the Alabama governor, so that's a nice place to go find out all the information. Now, William Dorsey Jelks was a newspaper man and that's when he became governor. He served from 1900 to 1907. Then there's Braxton Bragg Comer, who was made a fortune in the textile business, and he was governor from 1907 to 1911. Then there was Chauncey M. Spark. He was a judge in Eufala from 1943 to 1947, and he served during World War II. Then, of course, George Wallace served several times, 1963 to 1967, 1971 to 1979, and 1983 to 1987. His wife, Lurleen B. Wallace, served from 1967 to 1968. All of them resided in Barber County. But then there was two that served short terms as governor, as acting governors, and that was Jerry Beasley and Charles McDowell. The area in Barber County and around Eufala has a whole lot of history connected with governors in the state of Alabama.
I wonder why.
I don't know. I guess, I'm wondering, it must be a real political community spirit in the area, wanting to serve in the public office. I don't know. I wonder if the beautiful homes there inspired them or what. It's interesting. And there's another little thing, too. If you've heard of the movie Sweet Home Alabama with Reese Witherspoon.
Yep.
Well, the Sparks Bennett home was built in 1901, and it was, you see the home briefly in that movie. The history of Eufala goes back for years. I mean, it goes back into 1733 when there were 3 Creek towns that was in the area. White settlers didn't really get there till around 1816, so you can see it was almost 100 years. It was Native Americans that occupied the area, and there was a band of Creek Indians called Eufala, and that's how the town first got its name.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. Then General William Irwin came around 1816. He had gotten land, as a grant for his military service in 1812, and he became state senator. And he used his influence to make the first steamship landing place. He thought that would be a good area to have steamships come in. And he built his plantation on 31,000 acres near Shorterville community, where that community exists today. There was a little problem. The Native Americans were not too happy with him because while his home was on land that the whites owned, the land where the settlement was made later on was still owned by the Creeks. So they weren't happy with him doing that. But the settlement continued to grow, and it was renamed Irvington after him because he had done such a wonderful thing by bringing the steamship wharf there. The growth continued for a while, but because it was in Native American territory, you can imagine there were quite a few battles going on all the time. And the Creeks finally were forced off by gunpoint in the days of the Trail of Tears. There was a town in Georgia, Irvington too, and that was kind of confusing. So in 1843, they changed the name back to Eufala because that was getting the postal workers confused. They were delivering the mail to 2 different Irvingtons, and sometimes they didn't give real good, clear directions on these mail packets. So I can imagine how late the mail was a lot of times. But there was an old inn called the Irvington Inn that was built back in 1836 that served for a number of years, and it's still standing. And it's probably the oldest frame building in the city of Eufala. The inn was on the main road that led to Eufala, so everybody stopped there. It was a tavern and for everybody to get all the latest news. But it went by a bunch of different names, though.
Do you have a picture? You got a picture of that inn on the website,
right? It's on the website. A lot of pictures of it back from around 1930s, what it looked like then and what it looks like today. So if you go to the pilgrimage, you probably can see it. The name that it was given was the Williams House, Peace's Tavern, the Irvington Inn, of course, and it was also called the Old House on the Bluff. And for a time during the Civil War, it served as a Confederate hospital, so it was called the Confederate Hospital. And it also was called the Mashburn House and Farrell's Gardens. So you can see it's had a number of hidden names and situations for it over the years that it served for many different things.
So you said it was called Confederate. It was a Confederate hospital at once.
Yeah, you can see axe marks on the floor. In the 1860s, the Union soldiers came through, ransacked it. There's also something interesting about it is an outside staircase led to the second floor. For some reason, most early pioneer dwellings had central halls, but this one did. It just had the outside, so people would go up, I guess, to sleep upstairs. First floor ran across the entire width of the structure. Cooking was done outside. So the pictures on the website, you can see some of those things. It's privately owned today, and you can find it at 105 Riverside Drive if you want to see where it is.
I'll put the link for Google Maps on that in the show notes so you can click on it in the podcast. That's Eufala's oldest structure?
Yes, it's the oldest frame structure in Eufala. Eufala was very, very lucky that it's still standing, that all these homes are still standing. During the Civil War, near the end of it, right at the end, it was April 29th, 1865. A messenger came to town and told everybody in town, better get ready because General Benjamin Grierson's with 4,000 Union soldiers is headed straight for Eufala. Of course, they were coming to burn the town down and ransack it. And they were panicking, really panicking. And in a twist of fate, however, they got news that Johnston had just surrendered to Sherman and Lee had surrendered to Grant because of the river traffic that came in. Thank goodness for the wharf and the steamships that came into the area. That saved the town. They didn't ransack it and burn it down. Citizens realized that, hey, the war's over. So they put up a white flag of truce and, greeted and everything. So it saved the town from being burned. Popular legend said that the Eufalan citizens whistled and sang songs of Dixie, though, as the troops paraded by. But anyway, they managed to save the town because the war had ended and they heard news quick enough. A lot of times that didn't happen.
So basically the mayor and everybody said they met the Union soldiers when they were coming into town and said, hey, we're surrendering. It's over with.
It's over with. The war
just in time.
And they had the official packet showing that they had the war had ended because they had just got word from the riverboat.
So just in the literally just in the nick of the time.
Otherwise, we wouldn't have this beautiful pilgrimage, to be able to go see all these beautiful houses, and they wouldn't be standing now. And you can think back of it, go up, and you can think back over the nights of the entertainment they used to have, and all the events that took place, during those days. And they're really gracious Southern hospitality going on during this pilgrimage.
Yeah, and like I said, if you to get down there to see these houses, to see these wonderful properties and the beautiful gardens and grounds, the pilgrimage is April 6th through the 8th this year, just a little bit of the weekend after Easter. And I think they got a website. It's EufalaPilgrimage.com.
Yeah, you can get a lot of information from that. You can see some of the houses, too, and the schedules that's going on. They've got a wonderful website to be able to get all the information that you need, telephone numbers, and where to get tickets.
That's where you can buy your tickets as well. So I know they do ticket sales. I think it's on a per house basis, or you can tour one home, or you can buy a complete package. So tour one home, you're looking around $7. The complete package, everything for the whole weekend, is $60. So
that's a good deal. When you think how many, there's a lot of homes.
And then if you want to just do the individual days, you're looking at the individual, like the Friday afternoon tea or the Saturday afternoon tea, you're looking at $20 around there, and Sunday brunch as well. So
and there's a lot of homes down there. You can also tour the Shorter Mansion. It's being used as a museum, so that'll give you more information about the governors, more information from the local people in each one of these homes. They'll tell you things that happen in each one of the different homes that you took, because every home has a story to it.
So get down there and take a look at the pilgrimage, and we'll go ahead and wrap this week, or we'll go ahead and wrap this episode of Alabama Gristmill up. Oh,
one thing,
sorry. Go ahead.
One thing more. There's also some ghost experiences people say happen during the tour. So kind of watch out for some ghost experiences when you tour some of these houses.
You and your ghost stories. I love it.
I love ghost stories. They have good ones every once in a while.
There are definitely good ghost stories in the history involved.
With the number of homes, and as long as you think this has been going, place has been settled since 1733. There's a lot lot of history.
Well, we'll go ahead and wrap this episode up of the Alabama Grist Mill. And like we always say, if you want more about these stories, you can find them either on our website, alabamapioneers.com, or the series of books, Alabama Footprints, that you can find on Amazon.com or your local bookstore. Like I always say, please subscribe, share to your friends and family.
Yeah, if you subscribe, you don't miss any of them that way.
It always helps us out. The word of mouth is the best. And until the next episode, we'll see you later. We'll let Red Foley play us out with the Alabama Jubilee. Bye-bye.
One-legged Joe dancing round on his toes, throws away his crutch and hollers, hey, let her go, oh, honey.